creepy. What was that? Oh, this place gives me the heebie-jeebies. Just like in that book, Jacko and the Lantern. What the? Oh boy. Gotta really get inside here. This place is one scary place. What the?
Wake up, sleepyheads. I'm the Sandman.
And I'm Retro. And we're R-rated.
Thanks for joining us once again as we count down 13 weeks to Halloween.
In the next several weeks, we're going to be reviewing modern horror films, classic horror films, and also some short horror films.
And at the end of the 13 weeks, Retro, Scarecrow, and myself will sit down and judge on which one is our favorite of the classic horror films. We'll tally up the votes and tell you which one is the best as judged by us. Let's get straight into it.
Alright, Sandman. Before I ask you your reaction and review to this film, I would like to first say that I enjoyed both films probably equally, but I have to say that the Spanish version was probably better, as in the way that it was told, the format. And I think a lot of the problem was that the English version was actually re-edited from what I've read. And because of that, I think it came across as a little bit shorter. I think, I'm not sure how much, but I know the Spanish version was actually a little bit longer.
25 minutes longer.
Right. And so, first of all, I'd like to say that I enjoyed the scenery the most about both films. These are classic films. You don't see these things, types of backgrounds and the fog and the scenery and the sets, for that matter. A lot of things today we see are CGI, and they're not practical effects. So when you go back and you watch these classic horror films, you see that there's a big difference. And to be quite honest, I enjoyed these films, especially the backgrounds and the scenery, a lot more than the CGI that we see today. So what were your reaction and your review for both films as a whole?
Well, I agree with you on most of the parts.
Right.
I love the scenery, the backgrounds. You were the one who pointed out to me that they were actually painted on glass.
Right.
That I wish that we could do a movie today, or someone would do a movie today.
Absolutely.
But those same things, the fog, even black and white.
Absolutely.
The paintings, as you said, the Spanish version is longer. I think 25 minutes longer is what I've looked at.
Right. It's got a better story because of it, because it's got more dialogue.
Exactly. It's closer to what you would have made. Neither of them really follow the book.
Right. That's what I wanted to say. I wasn't really wanting to review the book. I wanted to review the film, because the film is not really based off of the book. It's based off of the play, if I'm not mistaken, was made in 1924. And because of that, we have an opening with Renfield rather than Harker, which works pretty well the way the story was told, because Harker, like we said, was really pretty much pointless.
Didn't even need to be. The film would not have been hurt any by him not being in it. I mean, it's not any better because of him.
Right.
Really just a dead character.
Speaking of characters, who was your favorite character in, the English version? We both agree that the actors are superb and superior in the English version. And I think that's a lot because where we grew up with these English actors, possibly. But to be quite honest, Renfield, for one, I think is far superior in the English version, and probably one of my favorite characters in the entire Universal horror pictures, and as well as Abraham Van Helsing.
Yeah, I love Renfield.
Exactly. I was hoping you did the impression.
That is just, when you imagine a madman, that life is it.
Exactly.
His big eyes when they're coming into the ship and he's looking up at it.
Absolutely. That's what I always think about. When I think about Dracula, that's the first thing that comes to mind for some reason.
I'd watched the old one before. I'd watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, which they're nothing related. Bram Stoker's Dracula was 92, one of my favorite films. Follows closely, well, not closely. It still follows more along the book, but there are some changes.
Right.
But these two, as I said, I'd watched this one first, so I knew everything about it, and I thought Renfield was, as you said, Harker in the book is the one who goes visit Dracula.
Right.
And this one is Renfield. to me, Renfield gets more screen time than Harker. He's more important to the 31 version than Harker.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of newer films as well, if you're a fan of newer horror films, you may find this film a bit boring because it's quiet. There's not a lot of jump scares or music or anything like that.
No jump scares or music.
Absolutely.
I think there was a thing I was watching a review where it mentions that in today's modern horror genre, the scares is more focused on, as you said, the jumps, the music sets you into it, like, the shock value. That was more like, what this is. It's kind of creepy. It's slow and it leads you into it.
It's cheap.
Which one's cheap? The old one or the new one?
The newer one where you actually try to scare someone through a jump scare rather than setting the scene, the atmosphere, and making someone feel creepy all the way through the film, and then something happening at the end, like a payoff.
Yeah, you never get a feel. I mean, if you don't have I'm not easily startled.
Right.
I never jump at any movie. I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm psycho. But I never jump at anything can jump out on a movie, and I never jump. So to me, there's nothing to be nothing to be scared of.
Right.
So for me, I enjoy these a lot more. If you're one of these people who jump at everything,
right?
You're probably into this newer stuff. But if you like story and substance and just beautiful background, which
Absolutely.
nothing today has any beautiful background whatsoever.
No.
Doesn't make you feel like you're there with them.
Right.
And the music too. The music to me is a turn off in today's genre. Like I love it's just so quiet. You hear the footsteps.
Right. It does create the scene. I think the atmosphere, the feeling of horror. Like you're talking the newer films. It's I've seen a lot of films. The Saw films. A lot of those films they're based around like some type of grunge or more along the lines of some type of hip hop. I'm not sure what kind of genre you would call that music. It's just music is part of the movie. And to me, that takes away from the actual feel of the film. And also, the modern formula for films is you take a bunch of teenagers, you put them in a situation where they can't get out, and give them a masked man with a knife or an axe or whatever.
As I tell
and that's the horror film today.
And as I tell one of my buddies, a human being, I'm not afraid of any human killer. So for me, those movies are just, ridiculous.
Mm.
And like I said, it's always teenagers. I've noticed that, as I'm getting older, I want to see some people around my age. But it's always teenagers. In those days, Van Helsing, he had some heroes. Harker looked like he was, 30s maybe?
Probably. If I'm not mistaken, Van Helsing was actually supposed to be right around 50 in the novel. So I'm sure he's probably at that age here, too. As you can see, he's quite old.
And the thing I like about this, we talked about how we enjoyed the cast from the U.S. version.
Right.
You also get to see the guy who played Van Helsing. I can't remember his name. He also played in The Mummy.
Right.
What was the other one? Frankenstein. He's a doctor in Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein. So you get used to the cast. You see Bela Lugosi play in, he's in Wolfman. He's a gypsy. He's in Son of Frankenstein. He's in a lot of movies. So you get used to this character. You start to, these actors, you love those. The ones in the Spanish version, we didn't know them. It looked like they tried to get someone who looked like them.
Right.
I do like the story better in the Spanish version. The 25 extra minutes is better. But I just like the cast better for the U.S. version.
And I'm not sure if we watched the 75th anniversary version of the English version or not, but it looked better for some reason than the Spanish version we watched.
Well, because we have the high definition of
okay.
There are a few notes that I feel we should have touched on, like a couple things I want to ask you about. I called it a wasp in the casket. You said it was...
It's a Jerusalem cricket. It's native to California, from what I read, and it's possibly why they used it. It looked like they were just using strange animals, like armadillos, that they were not native to California. They're pretty far off in, warmer climates, Florida places. They had an opossum there that absolutely not from that area.
Armadillo, did you mention the armadillo?
Yes, armadillos.
Mm-hmm.
It just looked like they were trying to find the creepiest creatures they could find and just...
Well, the thing about the cricket, as you call it, that gets me is, I enjoyed it. I love it. It had its own little bitty casket, and it crawls out of. But why would a vampire, and how would a vampire turn a cricket into a vampire cricket?
I don't fully
Why would he
understand.
keep it in is it his pet? Is he keeping it in the little bitty thing?
I have no idea.
I don't understand it. It was put there probably for effects. I loved it, but I don't understand it.
I'm the same. I loved it too, but still at the same time, it's a little bit strange. In a horror film especially, maybe they were just trying to add some type of a comedic value to it. I'm not sure why they would add that in there.
A couple more questions. What happened to his brides after he came to
They
Europe?
never really tell here, do they?
No, and there was one thing you told me that the guy who played Jonathan Harker, that he lived 65 years after it was made.
I think so, yeah.
And said that he never watched the movie.
Right. I'm not sure why that would be, though. I mean, I find it hard to believe, like you said.
Yeah, me. I mean, you're an actor. You want to make a movie. You want to get paid for it. And the movie was big back then.
Absolutely.
I mean, this started a whole franchise. I mean, they were turning them out left and right. It's like the horror genre was it. Like it's like the superhero of today.
It was supposed to be bigger than that, from what I read.
I can believe that.
And there was some type of something that happened, and it fell through. But they were wanting a bigger budget, but they created their own scenes for that. They actually reused those scenes in several movies after, for like a decade.
I love the scenes. I cannot stop talking about those.
Those backgrounds were just, like I said,
Frankenstein, when he's everything you see him walking up, you see a long shot. He's one informed me. They're all painted and they're all great. If you haven't watched it, you really should watch these horror classics.
I think so too. I absolutely believe that a person should at least, if they're a horror fan, I believe they should go back and watch these films and just bear in mind that this was a different time period. These were things that you are not used to because of, I mean, like around the 70s and 80s is when we first started seeing, these teenage horror films. Where I'm not sure if that's where they have to cater to a different audience or why that is, or maybe it's just teenagers for some reason find that more interesting, and that's where most of the money comes from.
Maybe teenagers. I think, as we get older, we can still imagine what it's like to be a teenager.
Maybe
imagine what it's like to be a fear, like I spoke about being a kid. But teenagers don't want to think what it's like, when they're old and they're doing this, heroic horror stuff. But to me, it's just so much better to see someone who's more mature doing what they do, fighting these, Frankenstein monsters, vampires, werewolves. And the acting is so much better.
I think so. And like you were saying, I was glad we did watch the Spanish version, and I highly recommend this. The Spanish version as well as the English version back to back, because you kind of get an idea of what's missing in the English version, why it's arranged the way it is, and it does give you a feel for a movie, a complete movie, how it should have been. Like I said, I would have loved to seen an English version with all the extras added from the Spanish version.
I would suggest, as he said, watch both of these two films together. Also, if you're into it, watch Bram Stoker's Dracula if you have it. One of my favorites. We'll probably review it later, but not with the classics.
Right.
We will review Nosferatu,
right.
which I think another thing you informed me of was intended to be Dracula,
right.
but at the time they could not get the the rights.
Couldn't get the rights.
So the title was changed to Nosferatu,
right.
the Symphony of Horror.
I think that's like something.
I
think it's something that was maybe later, like an added, like a different version.
Version.
But like you said, all the prints were ordered to be destroyed, and somehow it was a miracle that we actually have Nosferatu, because it went through this big lawsuit, and they, of course, won, and they said they wanted all prints destroyed, and it didn't happen. Not all prints were destroyed, and because of that, we still have not a really good, clean version, but we do have a version.
It'd be a shame if we had lost that. I hadn't watched it until maybe 10 years back. When I was younger, things like that were harder to find. Now you can order them.
Yes.
eBay and all this, you can find some of them. However you can get a hold of them. They're not hard to get a hold of now. And it is really a really good movie. It's really creepy. It's silent, which we're going to be doing Phantom Opera. And that will be the only two silent films we'll be doing.
I believe so, yeah.
But it's the only vampire silent film that we're going to be reviewing. But I think it's by far creepier than any of them.
I think so as well. Because, the vampire, for one, Count Orlok, yeah. He looks far creepier than any vampire, especially in those times. He's not pretty. It's not a romance. I've heard that actually Dracula from 1931, the version is actually it was supposed to be like a romantic horror film.
Bram Stoker's Dracula surely is.
Right. Yeah.
But not in a bad way. I'm not into a big romance thing. It does have romance aspects to it.
Because
it's just awesome. I mean, it's by far my favorite vampire movie.
Yes.
I don't know why I bring it up. I keep coming back to Bram Stoker's Dracula because
it's just,
when I think of Dracula, I want to watch it. It does have beautiful scenes in it as well.
It's a beautiful film as well, yeah. I enjoyed it. I'm like you. It's not just one of my favorite vampire film. It's probably top 5, top 10 films of all time.
Oh, of mine? Yeah, definitely. Not just horror films. But
right.
It is in the top 5, definitely, of any film.
Right. I would recommend that as well as the one we're reviewing today. And like I said, I would recommend watching both Spanish and English versions of this. I heard that they were recorded one in the day, one at night.
Were they on the same set?
Right.
Everything. Oh, okay. I know the scenes aren't all similar. Like I pointed out, the water dripping down the bricks. I'm like,
Right. Yeah,
so I did not know that. You learned something from this.
just from the
from the reviews, and you'll learn something hopefully from this. Hopefully you'll agree with it. Watch some of it. Tell us what you think down below.
Right. Comment below and tell us what you think and subscribe and do all that.
Yeah, give us a like. Just keep on joining us week after week. We'll have at least one a week. We have 12 more weeks to Halloween. 9 more films to do. We'll be rotating out. We have Retro, Scarecrow, myself. We'll review all these, as I said, and we'll tally up the votes at the end. And I'm kind of wondering which one will come in on top.
I kind of believe I already know which one.
I think I know which one will come on top just because me and you.
Right. I'm not sure
Well,
about.
it depends. He could judge it at 1 out of 10. And, I mean, so it's up for grabs, but I kind of had an inkling of which one's going to come out on top. But, we'll talk about that more later, I guess. We don't want to give everything away. We want you to keep coming back, watching the videos. As he said, subscribe, click the like button. Click the little bell so you get some notifications every time we upload something. We're going to try to upload 2 or 3 videos. We're just now starting out. We're going to get better at this. Starting out around the Halloween season, which is great. We hope so. We may not. We hope so. But anything else you think of that? What did you think about it? What would you judge it? What was
On a scale of what? 1 to 10, or do you want to go with
like, love?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll say a 9.
9. That is pretty high.
No, I can't do that because I don't. I'm going to say an 8.
Okay. Well, see,
because I haven't done any system yet.
Yeah,
I'll have to figure out my system.
If you're going like that,
I'll just say I absolutely loved it. It's not perfect by no means, but it's probably, if you're going to start somewhere, I say start with this film and the Frankenstein film, if nothing else.
I think if you haven't watched them, you will enjoy them more. The more you watch them, they do get a little bit because you know everything about it.
Right.
But for me, it's still great. And as far as how I felt about it, I felt that it was a sweet dream.
There you go.
Join us next time.